11, rescue 12. Respond for a possible heart attack. RP indicates the subject is lying down and is clutching his chest.
On our way. Listening! What's on our way?
On my way. What's up? On our way. Consider it done.
On the way.
Consider it done.
What's on the way? Listening! On my way! Listening! On my way! Will do!
On my way.
Listening! Listening! On our way, yes.
On our way.
What's up?
I'm on it. Yeah?
Yeah? Listening. Will be done immediately. On my way.
Engine 78, rescue 264. Respond for an unknown medical, possible food poisoning. RP is calling from the market. She's indicating that her friend had eaten at a nearby
On the way.
restaurant and suddenly became ill.
Listening. On our way. On my way! Consider it done! What's up? On our way! Yeah, on my way! I'm on it! We'll be done immediately!
Engine 9, Engine 77, Engine 78, Truck 64, Battalion 209. Respond for a structure fire possibly caused by an electrical appliance. Be advised there are injuries.
On my way! On my way! On my way! Listening! On my way! On our way! Listening! Will do! On my way! Yeah? On our way! No problem. What's up? On my way! What's up? On our way! Yeah? What's up? On my way. Consider it done. Will do. Yeah? On my way. Consider it done. On my way. Consider it done. Yeah? On my way. Yeah? Listening. On my way. On our way. What's up? On my way.
Units, respond for a 488. RP is calling from his business where he witnessed the subject putting merchandise in his pocket. The subject has left the business and is on foot, heading southbound. No weapons, no description.
What's up? On my way! Listening! Yeah? On my way! What's up? Yeah, on my way! Yeah? What's up? On the way. Yeah? Understood. On our way. What's up? On the way. On the way.
Engine 9, Rescue 209. Respond for an unknown medical. RP says that she saw a subject suddenly fall to the ground.
Listening. On the way. Listening.
On our way.
On our way.
Yeah? Consider it done.
On the way. Listening. What's up? On our way. Okay. On the way. Yeah? On our way. On our way.
Engine 9, 11, Squad 57, Rescue 257. Respond for a multiple vehicle accident with multiple subjects in traffic. Be advised that MCU is also responding and PD is responding as well.
On our way. What's up? What's up? On our way. I'm on it. On our way.
What's up? On my way.
On my way.
What's up? On our way. Will be done immediately. Yeah? On our way. What's up? On my way. Will be done immediately.
On our way.
Yeah? On our way.
Engine 11, Engine 34, Squad 34, Rescue 30. Respond for a vehicle fire. We have no word on injuries. The vehicle is blocking the roadway and is interfering with traffic. We're advising CHP.
On the way. On the way. What's up? Consider it done.
What's up?
Will be done immediately. Yeah? Yes, sir.
Attention all units. Respond for a possible 451 in the area. We have several calls indicating that they've seen a subject, unknown description, in the area possibly starting fires. Be advised we're also rolling fire.
What's up? Will do. Consider it done. Yes. Confirming. What's up? Will do. Listening.
On my way. Yeah?
Yeah? On our way. On our way.
Let's go!
Listening. Got it. On the way.
What's up? On my way.
Consider it done. On our way.
On the way. On our way. On our way. On the way. On the way. On the way. Yeah. On the way. No problem. Listening. On the way. Listening. On the way. Yeah. On the way. Yeah. On our way.
Yeah? Consider it done.
Listening. On the way. What's up?
What's up?
Yeah. On the way.
Listening. On my way. Will be done immediately.
Yeah. On the way. Yeah. Listening. On the way. Will be done immediately. What's up? On the way. Yeah.
What's on our way? Let's go!
Listening.
Listening. On my way.
Listening.
On my way. Listening. On my way.
On the way. On the way. Listening. What's up? Will do. Yeah, will do. Yeah. Yes, I'm on it, yeah? Listening. On our way. On it.
Listening! On my way!
On the way. On the way.
Engine 77, Engine 78, Truck 64, Battalion 209. Respond for a structure fire possibly caused by an electrical appliance. Be advised there are injuries.
On the way. On the way. Listening. Yeah? On our way. What's up? On the way. What's up? Yeah? On the way. On our way. Yeah. On the way. Consider it done. Yeah? Consider it done. On the way. On the way. Listening. On the way. Consider it done. Understood. Yeah? On our way. What's up? On the way. On the way. On our way. What's up? On our way. On the way. Consider it done. What's up? On our way. Yeah? On our way. Yeah? On the way. On our way. Listening. On the way. Yeah? On the way. Consider it done. Listening. Will be done immediately. Listening. On the way. Starting work. On the way. Listening. Listening. On the way. Will do.
Engine 33, 57, 64, Truck 78, Battalion 11. Respond for an underground pipe explosion. We got several calls, all indicating that they heard several loud explosions in the area where the construction work was being done. We have no reports of injuries at this time, but we're advising MCU to respond.
Yeah? I'm on it. On the way. What's up? Will do. What's
Got
up?
it.
On our
Yes.
way. I'm on it. On the way. On the way. On the way. On the way. Listening. On the way. No problem. Listening. On the way. Listening. On the way. On the way. Listening. On the way. On the way. I'm on it. the way.
Yeah?
Consider it done.
Yeah? Understood. On the way. Yeah? On the way. No problem. What's up? On our way. What's up?
On my way.
What's up? Listening. Will be done immediately. On the way. Yeah? Understood. Yeah? On the way. Yeah? On the way. On the way. Okay.
Yeah?
On the way.
Yes. Listening. Let's go. On our way. Let's go.
Yeah? On our way. Yeah? On the way. Confirming. Listening. On our way. Listening. I'm on it. On the way. Okay.
What's up? On my way. Consider it done.
What's up? I'm on it. What's up? Yes. Will do. On the way.
Engine 11, Rescue 12. Respond for a possible heart attack. RP indicates the subject is lying down and is clutching his chest.
Yeah? Will do. I'm on it.
On our way.
Listening.
Confirming. What's up? On our way. Will do.
Yeah. Immediately.
Yeah? On our way.
Consider it done.
Listening. On our way. I'm on it. On the way.
Listening.
What's up? I'm on it.
Listening. On my way.
Listening! Listening! Yeah?
Listening. Will be done immediately.
On my way.
Engine 33, Squad 34, Rescue 64. Respond for an unknown medical. Subject appears to be lying down.
On the way.
Listening! Let's go!
What's up? On our way.
Listening.
Attention all units. Respond for a 415 fight involving several subjects. We have no description on any of the subjects and no word on weapons or injuries. Be advised the fire medical will stage.
I'm on it.
On my way! Yeah? On my way! On our way!
Engine 78, Rescue 264. Respond for an unknown medical. Possible food poisoning. RP is calling from the market. She's indicating that her friend had eaten at a nearby restaurant and suddenly became ill.
On the way. On the way.
Listening! Listening! Will do! On our way! Yeah?
Das Gebäude ist verschlossen.
Immediately.
Wir müssen die Tür mit einer
On my
Axt
way.
aufbrechen.
Immediately!
On the way.
Listening! On my way! On our way! Consider it done! Listening! Consider it done! Listening! Yeah? Let's go!
On the way.
What's that? On our way. Yeah? On my way.
On my way. Understood. Yes, sir. Listening.
On our way.
Attention all units. We have reports of a man with a gun. Several RPs have indicated that they see a subject, unknown description, with a gun, and he's firing shots at passing
Listening.
vehicles. Units also be advised that we're getting reports of shots fired in that area. All units break and cover, fire, and rescue will stage. Be advised that we have Air 32 responding.
Yeah?
On my way.
What's up? Consider it done.
What's up? Will do.
On our way. Yeah? Confirming. Roger. Let's go. Yeah?
I'm on it.
Engine 33, Squad 34, Rescue 57. Respond for a fall victim. RP is calling from the area and says that she witnessed a subject falling, but the subject has not gotten up.
What's up? On our way. Listening. Will do. On my way. Consider it done.
Yeah. Yeah. Will do.
On our way.
Engine 33, Squad 34, Rescue 64. Respond for an unknown medical. Subject appears to be lying down.
On our way. On my way.
What's up? Yeah? On my way.
Let's go. On our way. On my way.
Yeah?
What's up? On my way. Will be done immediately.
On my
Will
way.
be done
immediately. Will be done immediately.
On my way.
Engine 9, Rescue 209. Respond for an unknown medical. RP says that she saw a subject suddenly fall to the ground.
On our way. On the way.
What's up? Immediately! On my way! Yeah? On my way! Let's go! Consider it done!
Units, respond for a 488. RP is calling from his business where he witnessed the subject putting merchandise in his pocket. The subject has left the business and is on foot, heading southbound. No weapons, no description.
Listening. Will be done immediately.
On our way!
Engine 78, Rescue 264. Respond for an unknown medical, possible food poisoning. RP is calling from the market. She's indicating that her friend had eaten at a nearby restaurant and suddenly became ill.
On the way.
Listening! On our way! Listening! On my way! Listening! I'm on it! Yeah?
Engine 9, Rescue 209. Respond for an unknown medical. RP says that she saw a subject suddenly fall to the ground.
On our way. On the way.
Engine 33, Squad 34, Rescue 64. Respond for an unknown medical. Subject appears to be lying down.
On our way.
Listening! Consider it done! Yeah? Consider it done!
On the way. On the way. On the way.
Listening! Let's go!
Yeah. On our way.
Yeah? On my way! Let's go!
Yeah? On our way.
Yeah. Will be done immediately.
On my way! On my way!
Listening.
On my way. Listening. Will do.
On my way.
On my way. What's up? On my way.
Engine 33, Squad 34, Rescue 57. Respond for a fall victim. RP is calling from the area and says that she witnessed the subject falling, but the subject has not gotten up.
Listening. On my way. On our way.